Welcome to the Two Chicks with Hiking Sticks podcast. We cover all things natural, cultural, and historical in the world around us. Sit back and enjoy our sometimes snarky, often funny, and never dull podcast.
You can catch flies with that open mouth, damn it.
It's like I'm sleeping or something. What? Well, hello. We are Two Chicks with Hiking Sticks. I'm Susan.
I'm Monica.
And we are covering everything that's natural, cultural, and historical in the world around us.
We try.
We do. And, normally we're covering parks and national monuments and what have you. And today we thought we'd go back to something that we've chatted about in some of our prior podcasts, and we've mentioned it many times, but we thought we should go a little bit more in depth about it. And it is the CCC, or the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Yep.
And I'm always excited to talk about this group because they did a lot of work in the national parks.
Man, they really did. They really did. They were instrumental in not just, building, but also developing along with the Army and who else? They worked with somebody else. I don't remember who, but you're going to talk about that.
Yes, we are going to talk about that.
But you're going to go in depth about it.
Maybe.
Kind of.
And the reason I thought that this was a really important topic to discuss today, because I think we need to ask ourselves, could this also happen today? Could we ever have another Civilian Conservation Corps like we did back in the 30s? Because I think it's worthwhile to ask ourselves, could we actually do that? And
I don't know.
I don't know if we could either. If we talk about how was it that it was even formed? The United States was going through some tough times back then. I think unemployment was like 25% or something. It was really high, and people were really struggling. And FDR was the president, and he had, when he was, I think, governor of, New York. Was he governor of New York?
I think so.
He had tested a similar plan in where he was in New York.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. But his plan had worked so well that when he became president, it was like, I've got an idea to help kickstart our little world here, our economy, our United States.
Interesting.
Because I don't know where I thought that this idea came from, but it actually came from him because he had done it before.
Huh. So, okay. I did not know that. But again, as not a student of history, I wouldn't have known it. But that's very interesting.
Yeah, because even though I'm not a student necessarily of history, but I enjoy things that are historical, I did not know that was the case. While I knew he was responsible for the CCC, I didn't know that's how he came up with this idea. So anyhow, he was governor of New York. Now I'm reading that, but the thing that was this is why I say this probably couldn't happen today, because while it was his idea, it wasn't like it came out of committee and you had, senators or, representatives or whatever coming together with their small committees coming together with this idea. It was his idea. And from his idea to the point that there was, rocks being broken and things being done, it was less than 4 weeks.
Holy.
Yeah. So less than 4 weeks from his idea to it going through Congress, getting approved, getting appropriated, and happening, less than 4 weeks. Now, how does that happen? It happens because you have a president and a Congress that are all Democrat. Not making this political, but that's what made that actually happen. He didn't have the usual stumbling blocks of, going back and forth if a House is, Republican and the Senate is, Democrat or whatever. You didn't have that to have to contend with. So it could get moved along really fast. And because the United States was in such, it was just in dire straits, that we needed to do something. And so, within 4 weeks, it was stood up and people were working.
Wow. Yeah, well, you're right. There would have been no bipartisan shuffling, trying to work across the aisles to get it done.
Right.
It just got done. And that's very different from somebody coming in and signing an executive order saying, we're going to do this without congressional approval, because then what happens is somebody challenges it, then it goes slow moving through the courts.
Yeah.
And everything comes to a halt. So yeah, that I don't think that could happen today at all, ever.
And it's sad that it probably couldn't, but you look at then all the goodness that happened. So now basically you're getting all these young men, right? So originally I think it was 18 to 25-year-old people, young single men, that could join the CCC. They eventually expanded it to like 17 to 28, because you could, I think, at a maximum do like maybe 3 years. You initially signed up for 6 months, and then
Right.
you could re-up, and most people would re-up to be a part of this group. Because I'm like, after 6 months, why would I want to leave? But, these were young men that were able to go do this work. And you kind of think about it, how much did they actually get paid, and what was life really like for them? They got paid $30 a month, but they only got to keep $5 of that, because the rest,
really?
the rest of that money, that $25, went back home. It was mandated that money had to go back home. So that way the money was going into the hands of the people trying to live, right?
Right. Okay.
And
okay.
so it makes sense. And really these boys were getting basically $5 a month, right? The other 25 going back home to their families to help their families. But that helped the economy, because then you had families that had money to spend.
Sure. And not only that, they learned a trade while they were doing this, because, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but using the Mission Espiritu Santo as an example, they had to learn a lot of things about how to make buildings that they probably didn't know, certain buildings. So,
well, yeah. I mean, these kids, I call them kids, but these young men, they didn't have the skills, but it was an opportunity to do this. And the thing they talk about too is that a lot of these kids, guys, boys, men, came mostly from the East Coast, and a lot of the places they were going to eventually go were all out in the West, which was pretty barren back in the 1930s.
Yeah.
How barren that was. And that was such a lifestyle change for them. But because it was ran more like the military, that's how they gained structure. Because again, you got a bunch of, these young men around, you got to make sure you have some structure, right?
Right.
And it was pretty cool how they put that all into place.
That is very interesting. And yeah, I just can't see anything like that happening today. At least not a program that's mandated by the government like that.
Yeah.
Not a mandate. That wasn't a mandate, right? It wasn't really a mandate. It was an opportunity.
Yeah. It was an opportunity for boys or young men to sign up.
Right.
And that's why so many of them would re-up, because they were actually enjoying having a fruitful existence and being able to earn money and send it back home and feel like they were contributing. Because, when we're going through like this depression era, right? It's like you sometimes feel hopeless, and this gave people hope. It gave them hope by the young men being able to work, being able to send that money back home, and be able to, contribute to the family in a way that, the 25% unemployment was not allowing them to do.
Right.
So it, again, pretty cool that they did this. But so you wonder, okay, so like what did they do? So we know what they talked about, a lot of things that we see within our national parks and state parks and areas are really because of the beautiful work that the CCC did. Yeah. And one of the first places that they had camps was, and it was an episode we talked about recently, Shenandoah National Park.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that was the first place that had camps that they started. And so we talked a lot about in the Shenandoah episode about Skyline Drive, which is the 5-mile drive.
Yes.
They are the ones that really made that what that is. Wow. And so if you ever go through these parks, or like, pick a park, Mount Rainier, wherever, you will see the handprints of the CCC all over the place, and just with the construction of how they built things.
Yeah.
And it's still standing today. Nearly 100 years later, that stuff is still there.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't look into a lot of how many of the national parks there were, but there, just quite a few that were in Texas. I don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on with the national parks.
Well, the one thing, let me just say this is because I was trying to get a grasp of how big the Civilian Conservation Corps was, right? And like how much effect did they have on all of our parks and stuff. So there were 841 CCC camps on NPS managed land. So this is where they all lived, right?
Right.
And over all of these areas, the things that they built, over 500 of these things and structures that they built became recorded on the National Historic Register.
Wow.
And the reason why, going back to what you were saying earlier, is because they really did a lot to use the materials and the ways of the things around where they were building.
Yes.
To make it congruous, I guess, with the world that, wherever that park was or wherever that,
Sure.
Wherever that place was that they were doing the work, is to make it more seamless. And I remembered when I had gone to Mount Rainier National Park, the people there at Mount Rainier said, we were looking at, some stuff because I had to pass my junior ranger thing, that the structure, don't laugh at me, the structures that are built in Mount Rainier are what they call NPS rustic. It's like a style. And that became the style that all NPS sites would be modeled after. And while Mount Rainier was the starting point for this, it was the Civilian Conservation Corps that took it nationwide to all of the national park sites.
Okay.
And so it's like there's NPS font. Like if you ever want to create something, you can have an NPS font. Same kind of thing with NPS rustic is that if you ever notice, like when you go to these places, they really do try to blend into wherever they're at and look like they are a part and using materials of that place where that is being built. I just found that so cool. So anyhow, so it's very expansive in how they did this across the NPS.
Well, and that's kind of exactly what I found when I was doing some research on the Texas state parks, because you were talking about the number of people basically or men that were like conscripted to do this. Is that the right word? Conscripted? Conscripted. Anyway, they used 50,000 enrollees from the CCC that worked under the National Park Service and the Army to create basically the beginnings of the Texas State Park System.
Wow.
And they helped to build approximately about 56 parks between 1933 and 1942. And 28 of those state parks are still managed by the Department of, I forgot what it is. Anyway, it's the State Department that runs the Texas State Park System.
or whatever it is.
Well, that's the national one. Texas State Park System, it's under the Texas State Parks. But if you've lived in Texas and you've been to Bastrop State Park, Buescher, you know what they look like, and those stone buildings, the bridges, the minute you see them, the houses, they all have that common look to them, what you were talking about. And that's exactly what the CCC did. That's one of the things that they did. They created, and we talked a little bit about, we've been there, Espiritu Santo was Goliad State Park. And remember the docent, the ranger that was showing us all this was telling us how they actually brought in architects that learned how the missions were built and what they did, and then taught these guys exactly how to use the tools from the time that they were created, so they could recreate this mission in that same way. So it wasn't just going in and building; they had to learn how to do things. So if they were rebuilding something or reconstructing something, to do it the way it looked when it was first created.
Yeah. So I think they called it like hand-hewn wood, right?
Yes, yes, they had to hew the beams,
Yeah.
and there was something else she said. The bricks, the way they made the bricks was a certain way
Yeah.
before they stuccoed it. So that, that's a great skill to learn. I imagine that some of these guys probably went on to maybe get degrees and become architects or engineers or just whatever. I mean, that's a lot to learn, especially at a young age, because they're learning it hands-on.
Right.
And then the other park that always stood out to me too, because we saw the pictures of how it was built, was Balmorhea.
Oh yeah.
When they built that huge natural spring. I mean, that thing is massive. And to have nowadays, if somebody's building a swimming pool, you go in with a bulldozer, you bulldoze the ground out and boom, lay the concrete. And then a couple of days later, you got a pool. These guys were in there doing that by hand.
Yeah.
That's just a lot of work. So I have the list. It was like stone cabins, refectories, bridges, trails, and a lot of overlooks through these parks. And we've actually been to a few of them that we've covered. Like I said, Goliad State Park we've been to with the Mission Espiritu Santo. We've talked about Balmorhea. Davis Mountain State Park had some stuff. And also the Indian Lodge that is within, it's the only state park within a state park.
Right.
It was also built by the CCC. So you guys go back through our videos, and we've got a lot of pictures and videos of a lot of this stuff that was being built and are still being used today. I mean, Indian Lodge is booked solid all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I know they just renovated it. They had just finished doing the soft opening while we were there.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see all this stuff 100 years later, like you said, still being utilized. So obviously built well, built to last. And San Antonio doesn't really have anything specific done by the CCC, but the CCC kind of influenced and worked with, what is that? The WPA,
the Western Park National Association?
Yes, I think so. And the New Deal, all the New Deal stuff. So even here in San Antonio, Brackenridge Park, San Pedro Springs Park, which is one of the oldest parks in the United States, by the way, which has just recently been renovated. The Japanese Tea Garden.
Oh,
if you go through the Japanese Tea Garden, you're going to see it looks very similar to that same aesthetic that the CCC put out in a lot of the parks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you think about it. And have you been there recently?
A couple of years ago. But
think about those pagodas.
Yeah.
It's got that same kind of look. And then remember I did the hike through Comanche Lookout City Park?
Yep.
The tower that's in that park is also kind of structured in the same general aesthetic as the CCC. So they influenced, I think, a lot of people or architects or whatever you want to call them that were building things at that time to kind of copy. And Comanche Lookout is part of the Camino Real de Tejas, which we did a video on as well.
Right.
So there was a lot of influence that the CCC had on future parks that we still continue to see. I mean, it's basically living history. It's just kind of
the thing
crazy.
I always find fascinating, and I remind myself of this when I go through parks and stuff, and particularly like when you're hiking alongside the road or whatever, or you're traveling or you go to the lookouts and stuff, is that border of rock wall that you see everywhere was built by the CCC, right? And I'm amazed by how sturdy it still is. Like, they seriously built it to last. And I'm thankful for that because that keeps us from falling off cliffs. So it's really kind of good. But the other thing that we also have to think about that we probably don't recognize as much is how many trees they planted.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they planted, I want to say it was like, this is the stat, over 3 billion trees across all these different places. And they seeded a lot of land as well. So it's hard to think about that. But
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, because I don't think about them. I always think about hard building. I don't think about planting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that was, but it was planting.
Can you do
It
that
was
again? I
did
missed
that
it.
in the Era store. Anyhow, not talking about that.
You're digging. You're not
I'm digging
planting.
for something. But yeah, so they planted over 3 billion trees, constituting over half of all reforestation work done in the nation's history up to that time. That's a
Huh.
lot.
I had no idea. That's crazy.
Well, it is crazy, but FDR was such a lover of nature
Yes.
that, and we talked about it when we just talked about Joshua Tree,
Yeah.
A prior episode, that he was such a lover of that this like married well together. I mean, like this was a win that he could, take care of the things he cared a lot about, and a lot of Americans cared about too, and putting people to work. It's like it was like a match made in heaven. Now, I'm not going to say that it didn't have any speed bumps along the way, because FDR still had to do some glad handing of people, because the unions were not excited about this creation of the Civilian Conservation Corps, right? Because what are you doing, taking these jobs or whatever? So FDR was smart that he hired basically a vice president of the union somewhere and made him like the head chief of whatever this was, the CCC. And the Army wasn't excited about it because, they were having to spend resources, managing these camps and stuff. Eventually they weeded that out and they stopped doing that. So like there were, and segregation was a big thing. They had originally, when they set up, this is what's interesting, is that when they set up the Civilian Conservation Corps, it was that there was not to be segregation amongst the men who were coming to work.
Oh.
And the Southern people were not happy about that. They still wanted to have segregation. So while it was in writing that there would not be segregation, that actually wasn't what was actually in practice. But he had to do something to make sure that the Southern folks were going to be okay with it. So, you had to get through, some of those little roadblocks.
Sure.
But when you look at what the benefit has been, the foresight that he had, who has that today?
Yeah, that's true. It's true. For its time and for what it accomplished, and for, again, I'm not a huge student of history, but from what I do know and from what I've read, it probably was very instrumental in helping lift us out of the Depression.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, and the only reason it stopped was World War II, really.
Yeah.
I mean, because it ended in 42. Yeah. And more jobs were then created because of the fact that we were going into World War II. So
right.
Otherwise, you wonder, could this have lived on? I don't know.
Would have been interesting, huh?
Well, interesting from the standpoint of what more could they have done?
Right, exactly. What else? What other parks would have been built or impacted by that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there are a ton of parks. Out of those 28, I think I've been to 11. I'm not sure.
Oh wow.
But Caddo Lake.
Oh yeah.
The trails on Caddo Lake. My favorite, Bastrop, has the houses that they still rent out. They're still renting these little houses out. Blanco State Park has, you wouldn't know, it doesn't have like an overabundance of it, but there are little places there where you can spot it if you're looking for it. So there's a ton of these little parks. Palmetto, also the big building, you've been to Palmetto, right?
I have, yeah.
Okay, the big restrooms and the big what do they call, pavilions? They're just all over the place in Texas. And I want to say that they also started the Texas Wildlife.
Texas Parks and Wildlife?
I think so. Well, I think that's kind of where it all kind of started.
I didn't know that.
I got rid of my notes, but I seem to remember something about. I know, right? But that is how the Texas State Park system started. There was something about the signing of it, but I can't remember, and I didn't write it down. Sorry.
Well, because it's one thing that you have the land, right? Because So if they even think about like, say, Mount Rainier, I mean, that was a park, I don't know, I want to say that goes back to like 1911 or something. I don't know. It's one thing to have the land, but a lot of these places, particularly in the West, were so remote, they didn't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And without the infrastructure, it's hard for people to come in and be able to appreciate. So you think about the 125,000 miles of roads that they built and trails that they did, because they were responsible for also creating trails that you hike on today, right?
Exactly.
That if it weren't for them doing that, I'm not sure what we would have, how much we would have today. So it's kind of like we got that jump start in a lot of these places because of that. And it was a terrific organization for what they were able to do.
Agreed. And I hope people are interested in this, because I'm interested in talking about it. And I'm glad we did the episode, whether anybody watches it or not out there.
Just go to a national park or go to a state park, certainly in Texas, and you will see signs of it everywhere.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we've got several videos, other episodes that we've done that have been at CCC parks. And we can't link them all, but they're there.
Yeah, they are there.
Go back.
Your mark is everywhere.
That's right.
Well, I think that about covers the CCC and the contributions that they made to a lot of our lands that are out here in the United States.
Yep. Very important group.
Very important. So if you like what you heard, be sure you subscribe to our little podcast here. Give us a thumbs up and follow us. Share with your friends who might also be interested in these topics. And
you can buy us a coffee.
Buy us a coffee, and you can also buy some merch with the Two Chicks with Hiking Sticks, and we'll put some links in here for that. So with that, Monica, do you have anything else?
No, I do not.
All right. Well, then I guess hike your own hike.
Hike your own hike.
And we'll see y'all next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, and remember to follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to Two Chicks with Hiking Sticks on YouTube, where you also get to see our lovely faces, pictures, and videos of our journey.